Hey, what's up, y'all? This is William, the permaculture consultant, and as you can see in the background, I've got the water pumping into the back of the truck. I'm going to have an update here for this off-grid watering system here pretty soon, but today we're going to be doing another permaculture Q&A due to all the fantastic questions that I've gotten down in the comment section down below. Now, remember, if you have any permaculture Q&A questions, just comment down in the comment section down below with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it. That way I can see it and I don't miss it or anything like that. Before we get started on this video, I wanted to remind you guys that Kentucky Sustainable Living is happening 23rd, 24th. There's also going to be a charity dinner for Vets for Child Rescue. So if you're going there, whoa. Anyway, if you're going there, I guess there was a doggone vulture sitting on the windowsill right over here. I didn't see it. Anyway, if you're going there, check out the VIP dinner. Let's save some doggone kids. And as soon as my heart stops racing, we'll go ahead and continue on with this video. Now, the first question we have is from Stephanie Valdez, and she's asking, how do I start a food forest in my backyard? I already have fruit trees and raised beds. So what do I do from here? Now, as you can see right over here, we got some trees and some flowers in bloom. It was a little bit warmer earlier this week, and then there's a little bit of a cold snap. So you can see what I'm wearing. But as you can see right here, these are the fruit trees along the swales. Now, if you already have existing fruit trees and raised beds and stuff like that, what I would suggest doing is I would start planting guilds around your fruit trees. By guilds, I mean any support species of the tree or anything that's going to fill a function that's not the role of the tree, the overstory, or anything like that. Start expanding your guilds until your guilds start coming in to contact with each tree. Now, this is a nitrogen fixer, and this is a peach tree right here. A lot of the guilds kind of died away during the abandonment, but what you can do, as you can see right here, there's only about 10 feet between them. You can start building your guild from this peach tree out, start building it out, and start building this one out. And as they get bigger and bigger, they'll eventually come into contact with each other. Now, if you see any large gaps, I don't know what your backyard looks like or anything like that, but if you have any large gaps in between fruit trees, then you can fill that spot with the fruit tree. Otherwise, I would just fill it with the other layers of your food forest. You have the overstory, you have the understory, you have the shrub, bush, vine, herbaceous layer, ground cover, root layer. All those different layers can be, those are all spots that can be filled, because so far all you have is the raised beds and the fruit trees. So hopefully that's helpful. On to the next one. Stephanie Hill was asking, same first name, different last name. She was asking, how do I grow food in the cold climates? I miss my garden. Well, I would argue the colder it gets, the more you should probably rely on meat. You're not going to have, this is why a sustainable vegan diet only works in the tropics. Does that make sense? Like, you're not going to have a constant fresh, or I should say a regenerative vegan diet only works in the tropics, because that's really the only place where you're going to have a constant year-round harvest naturally. Now, I'm not saying you can't create like unnatural systems, not saying there's anything wrong with the unnatural systems. I'm talking like a greenhouse or a high tunnel or anything like that. A high tunnel will give you 2 extra growing zones, 2 growing zones warmer than where you are, and then you're just kind of limited on the light during the winter. But yeah, I would try to focus on raising meat and growing the food that the meat requires. Maybe replace your garden with chickens and then do a little smaller garden to grow food for the chickens. That might be a good idea. Other than that, like I said, you can do high tunnel, greenhouse, stuff like that, and that'll give you about 2 growing zones warmer. Now, the next question is from Earthling Drew, and he was asking, does Syntropic mesh with permaculture? And if so, will I be teaching it here at the demonstration site? Now, yes, it does mesh with permaculture. It is a tool within the permaculture toolbox. If it makes sense to use that tool, then go ahead and use that tool. If not, then don't. Now, this is the perennial bed in the garden area. This is something of a syntropic system. The only thing I need to do to turn this bed into a syntropic system is start putting annuals in between my perennials. Like right here is an apple tree, and then over here I think I have a peach tree, or it's a pear. Yeah, that's a peach tree, and then over here I have a pear tree. Now, these guys will eventually grow up and then spread out and become actual trees like the guys you guys see around. If I were to plant annuals in between these, right now I have perennials, but if I were to plant annuals in between these guys, I have a syntropic system. An easy way to break down and understand a syntropic system is just growing annuals in between your perennials until your perennials outshade your annuals. And that's the whole system. So yeah, it's definitely a tool within the toolbox. It's not a tool or anything like that I spent a whole lot of focus on, but it's definitely handy, and it's definitely efficient on spacing when it comes to your perennials and your annuals. Awesome question, thank you. Prep to Adventure asks, can you go over nitrogen fixing trees and how to use them? So, nitrogen fixing trees are part of a class of trees called pioneer species. Whenever something traumatic happens to the property or to the land or whatever, they come through and they fix, specifically they bring atmospheric nitrogen from the atmosphere, bring it down to the soil. They form a relationship with the microbes that are facultative and anaerobic in the soil, and they create these little white nodules on the ends of their roots. Now, if you cut into one of those nodules and it's white, it is not fixing nitrogen. If you cut into one of those nodules and it's red, then you are fixing nitrogen. Now, that's still not free and round and loose in the soil or anything yet until you start pruning or coppicing or pollarding that tree. That's whenever that tree releases well, it was thought that that's when the tree would release those nitrogen nodules and stuff. That apparently isn't the case due to Dr. Elaine Ingham, who's made this kind of well known now. What's happening is that the tree is in panic mode, right? And then it shoots down a bunch of exudates into the soil saying, hey, we need building blocks because we just got chopped down up here. So the reaction in the soil is that all the soil microbes are flocking and reproducing and all that stuff to that tree and the surrounding area because a ton of exudates were just released into the soil. Now that is the benefit of having the nitrogen fixing tree close to some of your fruit varieties. Like right here, this right here is a mimosa. This is a nitrogen fixer. This right here is a peach tree. Now, as soon as I cut this mimosa down, this peach tree is going to highly benefit because it's in such close proximity right here. There is a black locust right over there, and the canopy's touching. There's a good chance that the roots under the ground are touching as well. So if I were to cut that down, then it's going to release exudates, going to bring in a bunch of soil microbes that are going to benefit this peach tree as well. Hopefully that was helpful. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's a good gist of what's going on. Now, Belinda Taylor is asking, do swales store, it's kind of a three-part question, do swales store water in the ground? Yes, they do. Can you put them above your house on a slope? I would say that's generally not a good, it depends on how far away it is, but I would say generally that's not a good idea to put a swale directly above your house on a slope. And she was also asking, will you eventually, or can you create your own springs doing this? And I would say I would say it depends. Like here's a swale right here. All the water that was in here has been soaked up into the landscape or evaporated, depending on, how much sun there was and stuff like that. But I would say it depends on whether or not you're going to create your own springs. In Jeff Lawton's farm, yes, there were springs that popped up after a course of 7 years on his property, but you might not have enough slope. You don't know where the bedrock of your property is going to be. You don't know where that impervious layer is. Could be super deep, and then you're not alive long enough to even find out where that spring popped up, or it could be very shallow and it pops up within 7 years. Or 4 years or 3 years or something like that. But I wouldn't bank on creating your own springs on the property. If you are having water management issues, then I would stick to like rainwater catchment as a main focus, as opposed to expecting a spring from a swale to pop up. Also be very careful with putting swales on slopes. Anything above 20 degrees is going to create a landslide. Anything above 20 degrees you want to use a terrace on. So hopefully that was helpful. Thank you. SMR 1817 was asking, how do I protect my garden from deer and rabbits? Now, one is in bloom. One solution right now is in bloom. This guy right here, daffodils. The deer and rabbits recognize this as inedible and toxic, so they don't really mess with it very much. And if you put it around every single tree, then that helps to an extent. For heavy deer and rabbit pressure, that doesn't work all that well. But if it's minimal or light, then it will work. As you can see, they're by almost every single tree. They're about to start blooming. I got a bunch of the peach trees in bloom, which is kind of sad because this is way too early in the season. They are definitely going to fall off during the next frost, which might happen this doggone week. But now for heavier deer and rabbit pressure, I would recommend, which I haven't had to do it yet because I don't have heavy deer or rabbit pressure out here. But on this garden here, I would highly recommend getting Billy's bone sauce from Permaculture's farm. That's my dad, full disclosure. But it is the best deer and rabbit repellent in the world. It's the only one that actually works, and it's the only way we could actually get fruit trees to grow in North Carolina because the deer pressure was so doggone bad. We would go out there, plant a tree, and it'd be girdled the next night because of deer. And now if you look over there, there's a full-blown food forest, there's a driveway orchard, there's gardens all over the doggone place, and it's because of the bone sauce. That's the only way we were able to get anything to grow out there without heavy deer and rabbit pressure. So check that out. Now Chris Yo 4KS is asking, he lives in the Ozarks and he lives about 8 hours away from his property in the Ozarks, and he has very, very rocky soil. What are some plants that he can use to start building soil while he's away? So as you can see over here, my ground cover, can't talk. It's a little cold and my mouth's starting to freeze. My ground cover over here is clover, and it's coming up. There you go. You can see it. It's starting to come up. Now these guys are going to help build soil. Getting plants down in general is going to help build soil. Like I was talking about before, the plants are going to release exudates down into the soil that feed the microbes, which allows them to multiply and reproduce and all that stuff, and then you start getting a cycle going. Once they start reproducing, then their predators start coming in, and then you start building soil. But the key is to get plants growing on the rocky soil. Clover works very, very well. It's a nice low-lying ground cover that you can use. Sun hemp is like world renowned for building soil, so that might be a possibility. You might have some some hooter bandits out there trying to cut it down, dry it, and smoke it. They're gonna be a little disappointed, but that's you are also in the Ozarks. If you go to Pleasant Valley Seeds, that's not the name of the website, but if you Google that, then the correct website will be the first one that pops up. If you look up their soil building seed kits or their soil building seed blends, that'll give you a bunch of different options. Now, I'm not necessarily recommending going and buying their seed blends because they are very, very expensive, but they tell you exactly what's in the seed blends. Maybe to pick 2 or 3 of those that are available to you, to wherever you can get seeds from. Make the blend yourself, and then go out there and scatter seed, and then scatter mulch right before your next rain. All right, y'all, if you have any permaculture Q&A submissions, just remember to leave them down below in the comment section with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of the comment. And thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you.